Well, you go. Anything that's really bad and is really exaggerated, we really put a spotlight on it. Anything that's really good and value for money, we put a spotlight on it. Anything that's mediocre, for the most part, we ignore. So what you're getting here is hopefully information you can totally rely on. Information you can take to the bank. Now, many of you will understand that because of our policy, we tend to come down heavy on some of the so-called common wisdoms out there and show that they're not what they are. And what I'm going to do is give you a rundown on some of the things that we're going to, how shall I say, highlight that are not quite what they should be or totally not what they should be. So let's make a start. First thing is ram stacks. Now you would think that since they've been around for 100 years that ram stacks would be pretty well sorted out. But no. Even those on expensive, cost almost no object CanAm cars like this. Now, is that fast enough for you? These cars were blindingly fast. This is Andy Newell's M8 McLaren, which he drove to a championship, I believe, in about 2015. It's 8.8 litres, which works out to about 520 cubic inches. Engine makes about 880 horsepower, and it looks like a lot of fun to drive. But notice the ram stacks on it. This is a very advanced car. Those ram stacks aren't right. They may work well on the dyno, but they are not good on the track. I'm going to tell you why. And just for the record, I built an engine for a CanAm car, a Lola T165, about 20 years ago. Car was much faster than it was with the original engine. Much faster. Anyway, on with the other subject. Another thing is air filters. We have people talk about air filters that have maybe some extensive experience on how they perform or how they apparently perform when in use, but don't understand subtle differences. Now, I've just seen a load of videos on the CanAm filters which really are painting the picture wrong. So I'm going to go into that. Also, those of you who may have them will recognize this is an EcoBoost Ford filter. Here's a new one stock as they come from the factory. I was astounded by the results of testing these two filters. I'll talk about that. Now, another thing that I want to talk about is EcoBoost Mustang Airboxes. I've touched on this before. I've got this one disassembled here because I'm doing some work on it. But I am getting more and more convinced that the so-called cold air intakes out there are not doing their job properly. Now I'm going to build my own here, which will work, and I'll show you how to do that. But all of those of you with either the stock or an aftermarket cold air system, I need some data from you. A few of you with stock systems just drive down the freeway 20 miles at 65 miles an hour. Note the outside temperature and note your intake temperature. Let me have that data and tell me you've got a stock one. Those of you who have got aftermarket ones, let me know which aftermarket one you've got. Note the outside temperature and the air intake temperature. Do that at 65 miles an hour for 25 miles on the freeway. What I would like you to do here is to join the Mustang 6G forum and post your results on the thread that I have started on that channel just for these results. Help me on this and I'll help you. I think that I can show you how to improve those systems out there, or not even buy a new system, but make the one you've got, the stock one, the best it's going to be, and it'll still use all the stock components that you know, like the sensor and all that will stay in the same place, and so it'll use a stock filter, etc. And that's another thing. What I'm going to do is flow test a whole load of filters, clean and dirty. Now, if you've got a high mileage paper filter and you know the mileage and you know the conditions, don't throw it away. Go to that 6G Ford Mustang 6G thread, and let's see if I can give you an address to send those filters to so that I can put them on the flow bench. Oh, and by the way, if you send me a picture of your car and maybe even do a little video piece, I'll put that in the video that I do, so you'll get seen by, I don't know, a couple of 100,000 people over the next couple of years. So let's do that. Exhaust systems. I'm going to show you how to properly size the diameter of your exhaust systems. There are formulas all over the place that give you all these, this, take the intake valve and do that. Well, let me tell you something. They're of almost no consequence. That is not a reliable way of doing it. I am going to show you a reliable way of doing it that doesn't include calculations that lead you most of the time, no, not most of the time, half the time down the wrong road. This is a system I've come up with, and it has worked for me over the years very, very well. Here's something else that we've got going for us. We are going to have our own PowerTec 10 aerodynamicist. Now this guy is a lecturer at a university up, Ohio somewhere, I can't remember where it is, but he's had extremely good success with race cars and especially land speed record cars. So we're going I'm going to do a video to introduce him. By the way, his name is David Woodruff. Now, he's been to several of my seminars and given a 1 or 2 hour talk, and it's always gone down very well with the attendees. So I'm hoping that it will go down well with you. One of the first things he's going to do is hood scoops. There are so many hood scoops out there that are just absolutely wrong. In fact, there's more ones that are wrong than right. We are going to focus a lot of this aerodynamics on the Mustang. That's another reason you need to join the Mustang 6G deal. And if you're a Mustang owner, of course, watch my channel. What else have we got here? So what's next on the list? Well, it's to do with cylinder heads, wouldn't you guess? Let me say first that we see far too many flow figures on the internet that don't prove much other than the flow's gone up. Now, if you ask the top head porters what's the most important factor, they'll tell you it's flow with the appropriate velocity. But how many times have we had the appropriate velocity addressed? Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a start to finish video on why flow numbers alone just don't cut it. Also, I'm going to introduce and show how to use the flow program that Stan Weiss and I have written. It works magnificently. You will acquire pro stock capabilities by using this program and sticking with it. You don't need to go and address somebody else. This program is the only one out there which gives you instructions on what to do for any given result that you've just got. So watch out for that one. That'll be later in the year. It's taking quite a time to do the video that covers the instructions. So I'll see you on there. And speaking of cylinder heads, all of my 4-valve fans will be pleased to know I've started on polycording my EcoBoost heads. Here we go. There's a bit of vision down the ports there. Not done yet, but well roughed out and not much more to do. The exhaust port on a EcoBoost head at the manifold face is somewhat less than orthodox. And here it is. It's difficult to see because of the rather abrupt bends. Here we go. Right, I'll give you a better view of it. Now, I've not finished those. There's going to be some welding to do on it, just here and here, but it's coming on. Now, we've got one snag, or it might appear to be a snag, but we can get around it. I needed to do this exhaust port to get a turbo housing done. So this is the only spare head I've got. I do not have the before figures of the exhaust ports. However, I've got plenty of efficiency figures of 4-valve heads, so I can make a absolutely accurate determination of how good or bad this head ends up. So no problem there. Now let me show you what I'm working on that needed to have this done. Here is the inlet side, that is the inlet passage for the exhaust to go into the turbo on my EcoBoost Mustang. Now I've got four turbos that I'm working with and experimenting to see what we can get extra out of these turbos simply by reworking them with either a grinding wheel, an aluminum cutter, I'm doing the intake as well, and some sanding rolls. So the cost involved in this is going to be $10 or $15. Our target is to see if we can pick up 20 horsepower for $10 or $15. We'll see. Fortunately for me, I've got my good friend Greg of Greg's Airplanes and Automobiles. That's an extremely well done website focusing mostly on aircraft from 1890 something right through to about 1960-ish. Now, the thing is you say, what's Greg doing in the car stuff? Hey, he owns or partially owns a car company. And guess what car he's got? an EcoBoost 2.3 Mustang. I think it's a 2019 or 2020. Loves it. So he's also got a very nice chassis dyno, and he employs a guy who does the tuning. So what we're going to get from that is I do the work here and all the flow testing, show you guys. We send it off to Greg. He dynos it. We don't stop there though on what we're doing. Let's move on to the next thing. I think we can all agree that nitrous costs money. Used to be a cheap way of bumping the power. Sure, the nitrous kits have only gone up in price by whatever inflation has been. But the price of nitrous, that's compared with when it was first starting to make, how should I say, an impression on the hot rodders, it wasn't a bad price at all. It was a cheap way to get your cheap low buck motor absolutely hauling butt down the drag strip for not much money. That's not the case now. What we've got now is nitrous, which costs a small fortune. That being said, we need to know how to get the most out of the nitrous without necessarily spending a fortune to do it. Well, we're going to show you how that's done. This cylinder head here is a good example of what you can achieve simply by porting your head right. And I say porting the head right. The exhaust is the thing to concentrate on. Let's say you have a 150 horsepower kit. I can show you how to cut the seats so that you will pick up on any V8. If it's making 150 horsepower on that kit, pick up 20 horsepower, 170 with no more nitrous. Then we need to do the exhaust port. When I say do the exhaust port, we need to make it flow. We also need to work on the chamber, especially around here, and I'm going to show you all of that, which will amount to about a 50 to 70 horsepower increase with no more nitrous. And here's the thing, no more stress on your engine either. In fact, probably less. So look out for that. Now, I think we've come to the end of what I'm going to show you here. So let's get on with the final part of our video, and we'll wrap it all up. Here's another one that's a bit of an oddball. Now, I know you've all heard of a two-plane manifold and a single-plane manifold. But is there anything between that? When I use the term very loosely here, is there a 1.5 plane manifold? Could you even have one? Well, the answer is yes. And it has many advantages. One, it will make almost the same horsepower as a single plane, and it will make almost the same torque at the bottom end as a two plane, right? And your average horsepower is higher than both. I'm going to show you how to do that. I think you'll like that one. Another one that we have is Andy and I have just figured out a way to very cost effectively turbocharge the Crown Vic project car. Now, not just put a turbo on it, but put twin turbos on it in a very simple manner. We've got to make our own manifolds here, but it requires just some cutting, grinding, tapping and welding. Simple, not complex. And we think that for probably no more than maybe $500, we'll have twin turbos on it that have the capacity to make about 1,000 horsepower. I don't know when that's coming up, but it's on the cards. It depends on how well we hold up against the workload. I'm going to be coming out with a new sales deal. 10% off everything that we had up to 60-70% off. So now some of the new stuff is even as much as 80% off. And now here's the thing. Terry and I are still plowing through this. I've said this before, we're not even halfway through. We're not even halfway through now. So there's lots to come. So I'm going to leave this up for quite a while here. We need the space, especially for these two new projects and our Mustang project, which eventually will be a semi-road race car, or you could say a very streetable track day car. There are other projects that I'd like to tell you a little bit about. It's only a small amount because two of these projects are as yet probably on the top secret list. Well, no, not probably, they are. But let me give you an idea of what they encompass or how much impact they may be. Those of you who are popular hot rodding magazine readers from way back, like way back till the late 70s, early 80s, in I believe it was the April 81 issue, I did a story that could well be, well, it was the story of the decade in auto magazines. It was the great nitrous oxide shootout. The editor considered the story so impactful that instead of splitting it up, they printed it 22 pages all in one go. And here's what I did. I tested 8 nitrous oxide systems to see how well they matched the advertising. But it didn't do the tests like most magazine writers would do. What I did was I promoted 8 systems and then on the quiet through a speed shop local to me bought what was supposedly the same 8 systems. Why? Because it's easy to rejet a system to make more horsepower than what you're advertising. Now the interesting thing is the horsepower ratings of these systems was between 125 and 150. Well, you'd be amazed at how many did not make 150. In fact, number one nitrous manufacturer of the time only made 75 on both systems. Now, the other thing I did was I had a guy from a well-known race team call up each of these companies and ask them a bunch of questions about them. One of them was, what's the fuel to nitrous ratio for chemically correct mixture? Only one company knew it out of 8. These are supposed to be experts. Anyway, the thing was, I exposed them. The company that came out number 1, which was NOS, went on to make millions, literally. The company that came out number 2 went on to make vast sums of money and did not even say thank you to me for that. Anyway, the whole thing went on and it was a big hit, needless to say. But it also changed the way that magazines advertise. They don't print negative results now, where it's out of the hands of the company having their stuff tested, or they do very few of them. So that is why they now pander to the advertisers so much. The thing is one of these tests we're going to test something that is even more important to racers such as you and I than how well a nitrous system works. So it's going to cost us a lot of money. Oh, by the way, when I finished the nitrous system story, I was in 1981 $3,200 out of pocket. Now if somebody says Vizard only does this to make money, no, I don't. I do this to help you guys. I don't need too many articles coming out where I lose 3 months work and $3,250. So that's BS. When anyone says, well, he only does it for the money. BS. I do it for those guys who are in the same position as I was when I started. That is, a lot of enthusiasm, not much money, but willing to work hard. That's what I've done all my life. But anyway, this new story is going to cost us at least $25,000. I've probably got better than $12,500 invested in it. So your subscriptions and your super thanks pay dividends. I am going to be, well, PowerTec 10 and MotorTec features is going to be out of pocket for a long time on this, but we're also doing another story like that. This is targeting to prove that I can tell even a professional pro stock engine builder how to build a better street engine. That's going to cost me probably another 20 grand, or MotorTec features. So again, we need your deal on this. A lot of other stuff is coming up. I'm going to test a less publicized engine tuner against the Cobb system. Now the Cobb system has got a reputation for getting the job done. I am going to test this system here, and that means I've got to learn how to program it from scratch, because it does a lot of things that the Cobb tuner doesn't do, but there again, the Cobb tuner does some things that this doesn't do. I got a feeling that this might work better for what we do on this channel, so I'm going to test it. Anything else on there? Well, I'm sure there is, but I've probably taken up enough of your time now to warrant cutting this video at this point here. So here's what I want you to do. I want lots of comments. I've asked for those. I want you to subscribe. I need those. I want super likes. We need those for the cash we got to spend out. And I want you to watch for the next video coming up, which I will, all subscribers, I will give you a heads up of a day or two on when it's going to come up, and a heads up on lots of other things. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be coming out with a new sales deal. 10% off everything that we had, up to 60-70% off. So now some of the new stuff is even as much as 80% off. And now here's the thing. Terry and I are still plowing through this. I've said this before, we're not even halfway through. We're not even halfway through now. So there's lots to come. So I'm going to leave this up for quite a while here. We need the space, especially for these two new projects and our Mustang project, which eventually will be a semi road race car, or you could say a very streetable track day car. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you on the next video, which is coming up soon.